ready to start. All right, so get your biggest brush, and before we start painting, let's study our reference for a little bit. So as you can see, I love photos that have a lot of drama, some dark, some high contrast, and something that has some depth in it. So definitely there is a bit of a perspective, you know, something far distant, something closer to us, and this beautiful boat. That's going to be a lot of fun to paint. But before we get to it, I will cover the whole canvas with a very thin color. And the color that I'm going to pick is, basically I'm looking at my reference and it looks very warm. I see a lot of orange, a lot of yellows and reds. So I'm going to just mix some orange, like red and yellow here. See, I'm just making a puddle of color, and with lots of water. So make sure it's transparent, and let's just cover the whole canvas with our biggest brush very quickly. See how it's just gonna be covered. So this is called underpainting. We're basically creating our underpainting. Make sure it's more on the yellow side. Mine is more on the red side. So let's add some yellow, and it should be very transparent. You should be kind of seeing the texture of your canvas. So it should be painted very transparent. Don't worry of being perfect. It could be, you know, painted everywhere. So why we do that? Because we're basically creating this whole underpainting that immediately creates a medium value. What are values in art? Values are light and dark. This is all called values. So a good painting should have a nice range of very light value and very dark values and anything in between. So basically having this with water, you know, everywhere, we're already laying down our medium value. You know, sometimes I just run my paper towel. You can have a little texture on it. Just have some fun with it, and that is your underpainting. So yeah, no drawing really on the canvas. And then while this is still wet, let me know when you're all done, or you're still in the beginning or still squeezing paints. Let me know so I don't go too fast. Just if I'm going too fast, let me know. You're going too fast, slow down, wait for us. I will be happy to do that. But I do usually try to paint fast, so you create this really amazing effects. And as you can see right now, I'm even covering some of my edges, although this is a thin canvas, meaning it's what, ½ inch. So a painting like this will require framing. There are some gallery wrap canvases that are 1.5 inches or, you know, even 2, so they can be on their own. They don't need to be really framed. So just giving you a bit of information on framing. But right now my acrylic is still wet, but that's okay. We're just gonna start drawing. And how we draw, we actually draw with a brush and a color. So pick a smaller brush. So yeah, make sure your underpainting is very transparent, like more water, and have a nice tone to it. So nothing thick. We're not getting into the thick painting part yet, but we will. So I'm just grabbing my very thin brush. Not too thin, but like, I don't know, it's a 1/4 inch probably, and I will mix a color. Don't worry which color, it doesn't matter as long as you can see that color on your red. So I'm gonna use this purple, this permanent violet that I mentioned to you that I like. Start drawing. We're going to start drawing our very roughly what we see here. So okay, there's something on my canvas. You can, for drawing purposes, you can even take, you know, a knife, one of your palette knives, and kind of indicate scratch on that surface while it's still wet. Sometimes I do that just to get my rough idea of what's what. So in a landscape, what's very important is the horizon line. So horizon line is the eye level. So the eye level, I try to have the horizon line usually not in the middle, not completely in the middle, but it's a little bit in, and in this case is about 1/3. So just indicate that horizon line, that's important. And I'm mixing a purple. It doesn't matter what color you mix. And again, if you didn't hear that part, it's a smaller brush, 1/4 inch. I'm taking like a dark purple, and I'm just quickly sketching where all my elements are gonna be. So I'm going to very roughly draw with my brush, and don't worry at all, just be very bold with your brush strokes. We are going to quickly draw this, and don't worry if you're not completely precise or if you're making a mistake. Everything is gonna be fine. Okay, hopefully you can hear me, right? Okay, I have to check all the time. So here, just very, very roughly, I'm sketching this boat. So what's important is just see the points, make sure it's not too little, it's not too big, it's kind of slightly to the left, past the middle, past the center of our picture. Okay. And I'm gonna maybe have this come in a bit. Okay. So this is gonna be the boat, and that's it. And now we're actually ready to paint. That's all I needed. And as you can see, it's so rough. It's just indicating space and look and placement pretty much at this point. So we're not putting any details, just basic placement. And I know there is a wonderful reflection right here at the very bottom that you can even indicate that if you'd like, but you don't have to. So I'm just going to show you, it's going to be coming out of the page somewhere here. So the whole point is to paint very quickly and really start with, first let's start with our dark values. That's how we paint in acrylic, that's how we paint in oil. Always start with the darker values. We already have the medium value, so now we will mix a color for the dark value. And the dark value is here, the shadow of the boat, and that sky, that's awesome sky, and here's some of the foreground. So each one of these dark values are gonna have their own tones. So anything that's far away is usually cooler. Cooler means, you know, bluish, greenish, cooler tones. Anything that's closer, we try to make it warmer and high in contrast. So it's not as soft. So anything far away is going to be softer, cooler. Anything closer to us will be warmer and with a higher contrast. So let me now, so just I'm picking a medium brush. This one is a flat. I always have my paper in one hand because I tend not to switch my brushes too much, so I just clean the brush and that's it. So I'm gonna mix a dark tone. So I'm taking that purple, that violet that I mentioned, that I showed it to you. So I'm gonna mix a little red to it. Here is some red, and my palette is very, very messy. And so now you can paint thick. Don't paint too thin. It's not watercolor. This is almost like oil, you know. It's very thick. And I'm just running this very, very dark tone, and be super bold. Now we're very bold. Just look at the big picture. Don't fill in. We're not painting by numbers. That's not a paint by numbers class. So we're just looking at our reference, and I'm just putting where all the dark values are gonna be. So I just mix basically purple and red to kind of tone it down so it's not so purple. And you know, if you want to make it a little bit more on the brown side, as you can notice, I don't even have brown on my palette. But usually if you introduce green to your red, it's going to make it look more brown, or it's just going to tone it down. So make sure you have fun brush strokes, you know, in any direction. Don't worry if things flow out right now. So we're just sketching it. And the fun part about acrylic is you can always paint on top. Nothing is lost. So here I'm just gonna very quickly indicate the reflection. And my print, I printed it on a paper, it's not quite clear, which I like. I like that part because it doesn't make me focus too much on the detail, and the details are very sometimes distracting. So let's make a deep color here. I hardly ever use black. Another color that I really love is called indigo, and this Lucas brand, Jerry's, do carry the indigo. And why I like this brand is because the acrylic is kind of liquid. It's flowing very nicely. It's not too thick. So I like that part. So here I'm just going to indicate quickly with this indigo tone. Right here is going to be the darkest, where the boat meets the water. That's going to be the darkest. And see how I'm making vertical strokes right away and indicating this dark area. So it doesn't have to be all vertical, some could be horizontal.
I can't hear you. Can y'all hear her?
No?
I can't hear you.
You can't? Again? That is so, that is really bizarre. Okay, can you hear me?
I hear you now.
Oh, okay. I don't know what's happening. Yeah, something's happening to my microphone. Thank you for telling me. Yes, make sure you shout out. Oh, well, I won't be able to hear, but just wave your hands and I will see somehow. Okay, so I'll keep an eye on my camera in the front. All right, so I was just saying, this is the darkest where the boat meets the water. That's going to be the darkest. And I mixed indigo with some red, kind of to soften it. And just have some vertical, some horizontal strokes. And while we edit with this color, maybe you can mix some blue, a little bit of blue, add indigo with some blue, and let's start painting the darks of these clouds. So clouds, if you notice, depends on where the sun is, meaning the source of light. In this case, it is a sunset, so the sun is very low. We still see, though, the dark is under and then the light is above each cloud. So each cloud has a three-dimensional shape. It's very soft, though, so make sure your clouds are painted softly. But before we go into all these details, let's mix a darker tone, and I'll introduce some red to it. And just squint your eye and see how this whole area is very dark. So be very bold with your brush strokes. And we're just going to quickly put some dark tone here. And don't be too light. You can now start kind of putting tone, more heavier paint. So as long as it's darker. And then also there is something going on over here, and it shouldn't be so dark because it's far away, as we mentioned. So I'm going to mix some blue to it. And now I'm going to indicate here this dark area on this left, and see how very I'm just painting it super rough, like in any direction. It's just, you know, flowing everywhere. Just squint your eye, you see the dark here, and that's how it's going to be. So now the next color we're going to mix is this, again, medium value. We're going to start adding medium value but more cooler tones. So as you see on the right side, the tones are a little bit cooler, maybe some blue. So I'm gonna get some blue. It's slightly lighter than the dark, and now we're introducing these cooler values. So mixing this blue. Okay, that's a bit too light. And again, warning about mixing colors. If you want to get a dark color, don't mix it with black. The moment you introduce black, it's gonna start looking gray. Unless you're into, you know, kind of monochromatic look, which is fine to mix everything with black and it's gonna end up looking grayish. That's fine, but we're more into impressionism. So to get my darks, I either mix with indigo, which it has some pigment in it, or this dark purple. So here we are, and now we're getting into the lighter value, which means I'm getting now some white. to get some color, and I will move to my right side right here and just going very, very quickly, and I'm gonna like paint this town. And as it goes farther and farther away, this color is gonna get grayer and not so intense and bright. So how we can gray it out is get some white, and you can dab. Now that we have purple on it, if I put some green, it's gonna make it gray. Like purple and green together make a nice gray. And I'm gonna just lighten it up slightly because we wanna create depth, right? So still using this nice flat brush, I'm just adding a bit of this color. And we're gonna try to create a little bit of a gradient. I'm using a very, very small canvas. I feel I'm so used to painting big that I feel like I'll be done in 5 minutes. But it's gonna be a lot of fun. So here we're just gonna create this a little bit of a softer tone, and a little warmer here that's towards us. So this way we're creating sense of depth. So now I'm popping in some red. That is this softer color. My paints are falling on the floor. So here we go. So here's some warm, a little bit of warm. It's okay if some of your background, like under painting, orange is showing in some little corners. It creates some very, very nice luminous textures. So, okay, here we go. Yeah, I definitely need a new microphone. If it just goes out like that, I don't know why it's doing that, but hopefully we should not have any issues. So, okay, so I'm just including some warmer tones. And now moving to the left, I will introduce now some yellow to this gray mix that I made. And I'm mixing this yellowish, nice, not too bright, but a little bit, try to match it. I really like that yellow. It's almost toned down. So basically, seeing the big picture, squinting your eyes, and now we're just mapping the whole painting everywhere without thinking about any details. No, don't think about any of this shrubs in the front. That's the last thing we will add. That's gonna be the dessert at the end of the painting. But here I see some brightness, some more brighter yellow. So let's mix some yellow with some white. And now, because this is water sometimes have, these verticals. You can indicate it with some vertical strokes. Don't paint around the, what is that called? The rowing, this thing that's sticking out. We'll paint on top of the water eventually. So I'm just showing some of the yellow. And acrylic dries so fast that painting fast is gonna get you the best results, because this way you will be able to blend some of these nice colors. If not, you don't worry, there's no fear. I always say no fear in watercolor, no fear in acrylic, no fear in art at all. Actually, fearlessness is the best. So here we're putting some more yellow, because I see it and it's coming closer to us, so it's gonna get a little bit brighter. And here we have some of this yellow tone, and it shouldn't be too super bright on the right side, because this is supposed to be more of the shadow area. So I'm just adding some tones. Here again is water. So the water is soft. Everything is very soft about water, unless it's a bright light at an angle. That's when it creates very sharp waves. But in this case, it's very soft at sunset. So okay, so we also see some reflection of the sky. The sky is really nice red and orange. So I'm going to mix some yellow and red to get us this orange tone, and I'll just pop in some orange right here. And as you can see, I'm just moving my brush in any direction. You're gonna have so much fun with this. Trust me, you would want to just paint acrylic all the time and just move in any direction. Here, connect this shadow that we created. Maybe a little bit of red right there. So this is the impressionistic type of painting. And we're still mapping it. We're still mapping. We haven't gotten even to any particular details. Make sure you have this dark on the bottom left, sort of darkish area, because this is where the shrubs are going to be, and we will pull them out from there. But for now, we're just painting the big areas. Now I'm seeing a little bit of orange here. Probably it's a reflection, obviously, from the sky. On the upper right here, maybe it's a reflection, and we can always go back. So this way it will create some nice realistic tones. So this is our medium value. The top of the boat is the area where it's lit, I guess, that is hit by the light. So we're gonna mix a little bit of yellow. I'm grabbing some purple to tone it down because it's not completely yellow, but it's a little bit toned down. So it gives me this ochre yellow, dark yellow. See how it's almost brown? So I'm just quickly mapping that color right away. And don't worry, again, painting over lines, between lines, we're not filling in. We're just gonna pull the details later. Whoever took my watercolor class, you know that the same principle I applied into watercolor too. So here is gonna be slightly lighter. Let's pull it out. I haven't even started working with the knives yet. That's gonna be a lot of fun. I just want to make sure we're doing good with time. It's 6, sorry, popping in my head. 6:30. Okay. We have plenty of time. We have a whole hour. Oh wow. So no worry, no rush. Now we're gonna move to the sky. And now that we have this orange underpainting, that's gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna pick again some medium value. Although we do have the orange, we're gonna tone it down because with something slightly lighter. And I'm mixing this yellow that I have, a little bit of white. Okay, here. And see, it's a bit more subdued, it's not so bright. So here, just very, very softly start kind of painting everywhere this yellowish tone. Make sure it's not so bright. The only bright yellow I see is on the right. That's where I think the sun is gonna be. So that's gonna be the brightest yellow. So it's very important to have levels of intensity. Not everything should be super intense. Pick and choose. We have to, you know, have focal point. So there is a focal point of this sky, of the sun right here in the sky especially. And another focal point is going to be, of course, our boat, but we'll add some details later. So I'm just putting my brighter yellow, and obviously this area probably already dried out, is dry, so don't worry, we're gonna paint on top of it. I'm just adding now, mapping again, brighter yellow. Isn't acrylic so much fun? It's just water soluble, there's nothing, doesn't smell so toxic. I love it. So here, the yellow, if you want to brighten it up a little bit, I'm just adding some white because it's a bit too, yellow could be a bit too transparent, so you have to mix it with white sometimes. And as we go down, it changes to more orange, so I mixed red and yellow. And less is more, you know, we could have had orange on our palette, but then we're gonna have to end up having too many colors. Like, we try to mix with what we have instead of ending up with, you know, the rainbow. We don't want to have too many colors. Limited palette does create mood. It creates a very nice feeling to your painting. So I'm adding some red, and now you can just start painting a few clouds right here. Just bring them out of this dark area. So there's some red, lighter red on the very top of that dark. I'm still using the same brush. There is some more that dark. This is too bright, so I'm gonna tone it down with some purple, red, and this purple. It's gonna create a bit of a tone. And feel free to jump in, ask questions, tell me to slow down, or ask any questions you would like. So very important. Now I'm just adding a bit of this medium value in this clouds, and it doesn't have to all be the same everywhere. So variety is very, very important. So as you see, you know, some edges are soft, some are hard. And how to make a soft edge? Now that everything here is all dry and the only paint that I laid is this, and that's the only soft one, wet one. I just take a brush that I haven't used and is dry, and you can just move it around and soften some of these edges. And you can paint now super thick. You can just get a lot of paint, like grab a big chunk of yellow, white, a little red. I'm still on that left side. Yeah, it's not watercolor, this is acrylic, so it should be thick. It should be painted thickly for maximum effect. And see, you can just soften it immediately with another brush that you're not using basically. So you can just dab and create some nice little transitions. I can just grab another brush and just pull out some of this color. You can get some yellow. Now, so see, if you notice, we still haven't painted the light yet. Everything seems kind of a medium value. I haven't introduced super light, which in this case, obviously it's sunset, so there shouldn't be too much light, but there's some areas that are very, very light. And we'll pay attention to those. I'm just lightening up a little bit of this, and again take another brush and create some nice softer. So going back into the lighter here, sky, some yellow, and again thick, and I was holding another brush right here that we will paint with. Actually use it for blending. Okay, so we're using another brush for just little blending right here because we want to soften some of these edges. Not all edges are harsh on the sky, some are softer. So as you can see, just unused brush, still dry, and that's gonna soften some edges. Okay, maybe it needs some yellow, so just modeling little by little what we see, Okay, so here we go, and we're going to extend this. There is some darker areas, and again, red and purple. Just move your brush in every single direction. The clouds are coming out like this way. All right, we're going to continue. Definitely they have a shape, and again, don't forget the shape. It's slightly darker at the bottom and they have the three-dimensional, so there is a little bit lighter on top. Don't also make them harsh, like cutouts. They're definitely softer.
We lost that whole
Was basically, now we're modeling this whole sky, and just pay attention to, you know, the lights, the darks, and I use two brushes, one that I haven't used and it's still dry, just to kind of soften some of my edges. Is there like an echo? Okay, maybe I won't hear that. Okay, so hopefully this is better, right? Okay, so we gonna use these. Okay, so it goes a little bit lighter here on the left, and it's slightly more muted. And I will darken it. I would slightly darken it with this purple tone. And again, when you mix purple, I have this very nice color. I highly recommend. It's turquoise, obviously. So turquoise is so great to mix with anything and everything, and just cools the tone and makes it really awesome. You don't see any turquoise, but I usually use it just to cool off some areas. Okay, so where are we? So here I'm gonna again mix red, a little bit of turquoise to get this kind of a brownish tone, and I will just put some more clouds right here. And I know things are already drying out, it's okay. We're just going to introduce the darks here, and I will now start adding light to this whole thing. Okay, so we're mixing white, red, and yellow, and a little bit more white. And just move your brush in every direction. Again, not too many colors. It has to be limited palette, pretty much what we see. A little bit of yellow. And now I'm starting to kind of lighten it up a little bit now. See how it just, even if you see brush strokes, that's good. I know some people think that's too rough. No, that's actually wonderful. The brush strokes are great. And I'm just adding some more lighter tones right here in the sky. And we're gonna get some yellow. Again, white, yellow, and we're going to introduce our lightest value right here where the sun is. So I'm just popping it right here, and you kind of follow this, you know, negative shape around that cloud, and I know it kind of disappears, so you can just soften it in any direction just a bit, and it can go up. Yeah, and you know, have bold strokes. Try to paint more, not just filling in as I mentioned. And now we're going to probably paint more shape. More.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm brand new at this. My paint is very wet. My canvas.
Oh, really?
I think I'm maybe using too much water.
Too much water, yes. So when you paint, like we hardly use water. When I use water, it's only to kind of clean my brush. So I clean my brush, dab it on your paper towel, and then grab your paint. Now, when you did the underpainting, that's when we used water, but not too much water, obviously, because we want to have some pigment. But it should be already drying out. Everything should be drying out. So the water is only to kind of, yeah. So just don't use too much water. Just grab some paint and start laying it out. And yeah. So let's see now where we're gonna move. This is some very red area right here, so I'm gonna tone it down. I have my yellows. Yellow, white, It's okay, you're gonna get used to it. I know if you've never painted with acrylic, you're just obviously wondering. And people have the tendency to paint as if it's watercolor, you know, very, very lightly. It should have texture eventually on it, like really, really have nice thick texture. So I need some yellow right here that I'm gonna pop. Okay, so see how I'm just mixing it? I hardly use any water. It's not watercolor, really. It should not be running, only in the beginning when you put the underpainting. So here's the yellow that we see. And, you know, just take a brush that you haven't used, then you can soften things. And some things could be smooth. I know we're leaving a lot of brush strokes everywhere, but when you look at it from far away, it's going to be really fabulous. And this is actually how we look at artwork. So again, let's model a bit, just give some shape to these clouds. So I'm just giving a bit of a shape now. Now we're getting into a little bit more detail, little by little, after laying all this mapping, the colors and the values. So the top of this cloud, the very top, as you can see, is slightly lighter. It's probably more red. It goes around. There is a reflection. It's all about observing, really. We're not making things up. We are actually, well, shouldn't have said, we are kind of making things up. We follow our reference as a guide, and we need to observe very carefully where the light source is and go by that. So here we have some more red, and if you lose some of the darks, definitely go back and kind of introduce it again. Just paint, you know, in any direction. And now we are adding the details. Sometimes I even use my hands and my fingers really to soften things. You can use gloves if you want, if you're into this, but yeah, sometimes why not, to kind of quickly soften things if you don't want to use another brush. So there is the sky. So there is something popping in here. Just pay attention, you know, there is light showing in between these clouds. So make sure that any brush that you use, pop it in your bucket of water, because it dries so fast that you may ruin your brushes if they're not really washed properly. So if you use a brush, yeah, just pop it in the water and clean it right away. So where were we? Okay, so here we have this orange light. Adding some more detail. And you know, you can have a very dramatic sky. It doesn't have to be exactly like that. It could be even more dramatic. Okay, so a little bit more red. Right, so now I'm gonna move slightly. I'm gonna move lower. And I see this land here that is so dark in my painting. I'm gonna lighten it up because, as we mentioned, anything far, far away should be cooler. So I'm mixing this purple, little bit of blue, pop it some orange just to tone it down. And I'm gonna make it look almost grayish blue because it's far, far away. So it just shouldn't have a sharp edge. Again, it's just some indication of land. And I know it continues here on the other side. So again, shouldn't be so sharp. Just dab it with your brush very painterly, in a kind of painterly way. So now let's look at this ocean. So again, as I mentioned, it should be cooler in the back. I'm gonna go over it again and add some more light. So I'm taking this turquoise. If you don't have turquoise, just get some blue and white, and some yellow, a little bit of yellow. That's gonna give you a nice kind of lighter turquoise gray. And anything in the horizon is a straight line. Make sure there's nothing wiggly where the water touches the land. So it should be a pretty straight line. And see, I'm just making a bit of a cooler indication of land right there. Not land, I'm sorry, I'm in the water. Okay, so here, just make sure it's all straight. The line should not be sharp. You should transition softly to this background because again, it's in the back. So there shouldn't be harsh edges, there shouldn't be high contrast. So I'm just tapping some of my lighter colors on that brush, on that area. And see how we made it a bit cooler and we're creating sense of distance. So you can even have some horizontal lines slowly moving towards a bit of a gradient, some sort of a gradient. Okay, just move. I want to add something interesting in the back, something create some interest. Sometimes things may not be looking so interesting, and I try to make them up really, to make them more interesting. So for example, this now that I introduced this turquoise, I don't see it anywhere, and I may pop it actually a little bit in that sky. Make sure it's not too bright, so I'm just toning it down. So white, turquoise, a bit of yellow. So it should be looking more gray rather. And I'll just introduce it slightly here in that sky area. All right. Just a few brush strokes, so it's not alone. That color is not completely alone. So now we're gonna have, okay, so I see some ground on the right, a little bit. So again, this purple and red, maybe some of that turquoise or green. If you don't have turquoise, just pop in some green to tone it down. And I'm gonna slightly paint this area here that seems like bushes, brushes, some land. Pop that in there. Okay. It should be, you know, purplish. It should be darker. That's how we're gonna show that it's land. And again, there is a reflection. It is casting throwing some reflection, so you can have some vertical brush strokes. I know it's hard to see, but just small vertical brush strokes. Very subtle, very, very subtle. Don't overdo anything. And if we do, of course, this is acrylic, we can always fix it and go over it. Okay, so again, as I paint, I look at, so always just check all your values, look everywhere at the same time, and immediately as I painted this, I saw this looking too sharp, almost as if it's a silhouette of something. So that is that sky. We want to soften it up a bit. And this bright yellow, it's not looking so bright. So I may actually at the end just pop in with a palette knife, some nice color right there. So right now I just want to have my light value already over there. So what we do now, we can get our palette knife, and I'll show you how we're gonna paint on that boat. how this boat is gonna look really neat. Do you all have palette knives? Yes? Okay, so grab a small one. We're gonna mix a nice color that's gonna create a texture, a lighter texture. So yellow, a little bit of white, maybe some purple to tone it down a little bit, to gray it out, because this is not, should be super bright. So this is going to be my texture here on that boat. See, when I paint with palette knives, don't just paint with the edge. The edge does create some nice lines, but try to kind of have it at a degree, like a 15 degrees, so you get some color. And you can just run this, you know, straight like that, in straight line, and that does create interesting texture. And you can scrape off some areas. Here I have some line. This rowing thing, you can also indicate it with your knife. And let's mix a warmer tone. That yellow is a bit too cool, so I'm gonna get yellow and red and white, and I'm just putting the light, very nice light color. It's gonna, with the knife, I'm just painting with the knife. And don't worry if things are coming out and it's not exactly what you intended, and it's very painterly. This is a very painterly fun way of painting. It's super fun, it's very artistic. Okay, so here we're gonna have some more lines. See how I'm holding my knife a little bit at an angle, so you get some paint on it, on, you know, your painting. Okay, here we're continuing. I know there's some detail here. The boat extends, and I'm making it slightly lighter than it is over there, which is good because it's closer. So yeah, why not create some more contrast? And I'm just popping. And if you end up having some texture, you know, with this whole palette knife, that's good. It's gonna really make your painting look very good. I'm adding some more light here at the end of this boat, and then I'm switching back to my brush because I need to paint the negative shape around this boat a little bit. Looks a little something sticking out, so here I'm just introducing another color. Okay, and then you can, you know, add some more detail with the red and the darks, purple, red. I'm adding some more detail here. Things are sticking out. Nothing is too perfect. Here we have lines. Make sure your perspective is correct. Boats are interesting. Like, if you look at them from this angle, they just, ooh, they have this aerodynamic look to them. So make sure your perspective is right. There is some dark something here. And the faster you paint, the better your painting is going to look. Like if you move your hands super fast, don't worry about, you know, not being exactly precise. You're just going to get such an incredible painting. See how I'm just moving fast, moving my hands everywhere, having this sticking out a bit, and just move your eyes, painting, reference, painting at all times. Don't get too, you know, engulfed into your own painting that you forget to look at the reference. And again, it just gives you a suggestion. It doesn't have to be exactly like the reference. So I'm gonna make this area here very dark because it's closest to us. So I'm getting this purple tone, darken it. That edge here is important, and that area here, if you want to make a straight line, just grab your palette knife again and grab that purple. Hopefully you have that dark purple. If you don't, you're okay. You can use, you know, black or very dark blue for the dark values. So I'm just popping in some of this stuff here. And you can, you know, have a little bit of red, just some color, just create it very dynamic. It's not gonna look sloppy at all. It's gonna look actually great. So here I'm mixing a little bit of orange because I want to warm these lines right here. They're going in that direction. And this whole reflection on the boat should be slightly warmer than what I have. So now, let's see, while you have this knife, let's squint our eyes and see the edges. Which edges are sharp, which are soft. So I see some very nice silhouettes here on the boat, like really with the water, nice silhouettes. I'm just gonna actually do these edges with a knife to sharpen them. So that's a reflection of the sky, really. So I'm gonna create this edge using my palette knife that goes right around this boat. That's almost creating some very interesting contrast that will draw attention to my boat, and soften it again slightly. We can soften it. With another brush. Okay, if you lost some of your darks, always, you know, it's back and forth. It's like dark light, dark light. At this point, we're just starting to add, you know, the details. So now it's just going back and forth everywhere. There's an interesting shape to this boat here, so you can paint the negative shape around in the back. Rather, it's here in the front. This whole front. So you can paint around it. And there is a shadow that is being cast. So we're mixing this, again, red, purple. That's going to be the shadow. A little bit more. That's here. So I'm just lightening it up here, some of this area in the back. And if you see purple somewhere, make sure that it's in other areas too. You don't want to have a lonely color in just only one area of your painting. It should be pretty much everywhere. Now I'm going to... Okay, so I'm just lightening it up, warming up some of these areas here in the very back as we go. And now let's paint some of these shrubbery in the very front. If you guys ready for that, we're just going to mix a very dark color. A very dark color, and you're going to get a pointy brush. And I'm going to use my indigo. If you don't have indigo, just get black and mix it with either purple or red, as long as you have a really, really dark color. And just start making bold lines, indicate where all these shrubbery is going to be. Don't be too careful, it can go in any direction. Just look at the big shape. Don't worry if you're losing some of, not exactly. Here, see, I'm on very, very top. I'm just dabbing. Very dark. It's just a silhouette, really. So there's no way you can make it wrong or if you can make a mistake. It's all in the very front. So it is kind of a simple landscape, but it does cover everything we need. It shows us, it teaches us what the values are, how we also see the big shapes first, and then we go into the medium values and the dark values, and at the very end we're going to pop in some light highlights. Again, let's keep going with this shrubbery here. You can get black, and make sure you paint thick. It shouldn't be too thin. I mean, there is a certain style some artists can paint very light and thin. It's just a style, personal style, but yeah, explore the whole capability of this medium. And I'm gonna just cross this. I'm not gonna, I know over there is a stop and there's something in the back, maybe it's a tree, I don't know. I'm just gonna continue this because it's not gonna look too believable, too convincing. So here are some lines. Make sure your lines at this point are thin. So it should be, they should be refined. Like when you look over there, all these lines, they're not very thick. They're super thin and they're not straight. They're just kind of going wiggly, going in any direction. Maybe something is extending more. At this point, yeah, you can just paint any shape you want, really, but make sure you follow these kind of lines in the front that will be creating a nice silhouette. And at this point, I'm adding even more dark. Maybe it's grass, maybe it's bamboo, whatever it is. We're just gonna keep adding these really, really dark lines and almost like scribbles. Just have them as in a sketchy type of way painted. So here's one is extending. See how I'm just scribbling, and it's creating some very nice brush strokes over there. There's maybe more dropping in here. They shouldn't be all too super parallel to each other. Have them all go in different direction. And I've always said everything in nature is very random. Nothing is super organized or parallel to each other. Things kind of fall in a very chaotic way. So in a case like this, you can just go, just tap it, maybe it's somewhere in the back. So painting is starting to look almost there. Now I'm getting my indigo again, and there is a rope. See, now we're looking at a bunch of details really to add. You can add this little rope, and even my line is thick. It should be super thin. Like, look at it, look how thin it is over there. So if you can mimic it to make it as thin as there. Yeah, very thick, not that thick. Okay, so it should be thin. And there's some more lines, and you can just add things. I know boats have stuff sticking out, or maybe there is a wooden area, just to add some more interest. Even if you don't quite see it, you just want to add some more interest and have something just some more detail, really. All right, and there is more dark over here. Okay, and as I know that, as I mentioned before, the dark should be the area where the boat is touching the water. That should be the darkest, so you can go over that and kind of make a bit of a darken it. A little brush strokes right here. Let's darken that. feel free to show me your painting as you go and ask any questions if something is not quite there, or if you're wondering what you should do next. Sometimes artists do get to a point of, yeah, we're all following, but what do I do next and where do I go from here? So I'll be happy to jump in to the rescue. So now I want to lighten up a little bit here on this right side, just as it is in the picture, to separate the boat a little bit. It should not be as light as the left. So you always have to be aware of your values. That's what makes a good painting. A painting that's been well thought out in terms of values. And we do find these values really intuitively. Just look at the picture, absorb it, and analyze it a bit. But it's intuitive. You have to know. Don't, just always compare. So this side to this side. So this side is definitely slightly darker. So this is how we learn values, and that's how we are always aware of every single inch of that painting. Nothing should be ignored, even if some areas are not obviously not as important. They may not be the focal point, but we never ignore them. We just make sure that they stay correct in terms of value, so they don't overwhelm what's important. So here I'm just adding some more of this tone, cooler tone, and it's starting to look slightly better on this side, and it obviously continues. So adding some of this light yellow on this side, which is the light, and it's very little. It just pops gently, and then it goes away. So subtlety in art is important. We are learning the art of subtlety. Even if we paint super bold, we should not be ignorant of what's happening really with some areas. So again, I'm just adding now some fun colors, and I see this is again that reflection. I lost a bit. Here's some more red. And at this point, I want to maybe paint around the negative shape of this, or show some color inside this reflection of the boat. So I'm gonna lighten it up a little bit and have some red. Obviously it's probably the sky reflecting. So I'm slightly lightening it up. See, I'm going in a kind of a vertical direction. And at this point, you can do whatever you want, because we lay down all the important values at this point. And you can just even grab now your knife and paint very, very thickly. And I'll show you how to paint super thick and go back into that sky with the clouds. Let me make sure that I'm on time. This is 7:16, so we have 15 minutes. Please feel free. I'm just gonna paint for maybe 5 more minutes until 7:20, and I'll be happy to comment on your work with any questions that you may have. I'm just grabbing, this palette knife right now and kind of painting around these clouds. And it could be really thick. I think my white is not quite here anymore. Right, so I'm just going to add it. See, it's very thick. I'm gonna lighten up here, and again soften with another brush. Always grab another brush and soften it. So here's our yellow, if you want to add some more stuff. So yeah, and that's how we go. We don't want to overwork it. We want to keep it all fresh. So you can always, add a little bit of light here. If you feel like you're overworking it, just grab the knife and put a few bold splashes of paint on top of it, and it's gonna look very fresh. That's what I always do. So highly recommend it. So, but just keep, definitely keep your values intact. So there is some shapes. I'm just painting the negative shape around this cloud. There's some red, I think that's the reflection of what's behind. Painting along is fun. I wish I could see your work. That's the big drawback, because I can't really quite see what's going on. So feel free, just say, hey Lucy, take a look. I'll be happy to take a look and see how we're doing. The fun part about acrylic is you can never have probably had zero experience with art. You're gonna end up having a great painting, because you can just go over it again and again and again. And the only thing is, don't try to mix what's already on your canvas. Like, let's say you have a color that's still wet and you go on top and just mix. That's how you get all this mud. Just grab a color, put a brush stroke, grab a color, put a brush stroke, and not too much mixing on the actual canvas. So I'm just adding some more warmth here, because that's where the light is shining. And just adding some more stuff. But it's all about fun and getting inspired by your reference, really. It should be a fun process. It should be something that you're looking at it, it's pure joy, like, oh, I really have fun painting this. It shouldn't have any moment of dread or labor, hard labor. At least maybe when we're still painting in the beginning, could be a little bit of labor intensive, but then at the end it's gonna end up being just fun. So at this point I'm looking at my edges. I don't want to have a sky that's very harsh with harsh edges. So I'm trying to soften it, of course, with acrylic. It's a little bit hard, so that's very specific thing about acrylic. So you can just dab your paint like that. That creates a bit softer. And normally I would have probably stopped painting a long time ago, but painting this particular page would have just left it, but I'm continuing. And you guys feel free to show me what you have. Next time I'm gonna bring a reference, we're gonna paint a reference that has more, let's say a village. We can have some buildings, something with harsher edges and some more details. That's gonna be a lot of fun. And if you prefer any particular subjects, feel free to let me know. If you don't want to paint villages or cityscapes, we can paint a forest next time. Trees are a lot of fun. Really exciting. So I just keep adding some light here and trying to make it a bit lighter, because that's how it should be there. So slightly softer. And this seems, I sometimes, some here in this area, there shouldn't be a, this line. Yeah, obviously it's a straight line, but yeah, you can kill some of this edge here. By kill meaning just introduce some lighter tone and just paint over that line if you ever
Lucy?
Yeah.
Lucy,
Oh.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I started out with a canvas sheet, so my canvas sheet, I'm holding here.
Oh, I see it.
It's all wrinkled and stuff, like I've got too much paint on it.
Okay, yeah, because you probably should have kept it on your canvas pad. It's okay. It looks great. Eventually it's gonna straighten out, and what you can do is you can always, I love it. I love your colors. I see the boat. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful. Make sure your horizon is straight, horizontal. And I see the boat with the dark values, so you're gonna add some more detail. This is fabulous. When we paint on a canvas sheet, believe me, the canvas pads are great because we don't have to waste any, you know, expensive materials. You can actually glue it to a board. You can just buy in Home Depot a masonite and tell them just to cut it to the side of your sheet, and they sell special medium, kind of a gluing medium, and you can just really, after it's all dry, you can just apply it onto that board and you can have a painting. But you don't have to, it's gonna straighten out. It's never gonna be wrinkled. It's gonna be straight after it's all dry.
So next time I should leave it right on the pad?
Yeah, keep it on the pad.
Oh, and then take it off when it's dry?
And then take it off when it's dry, and then you can apply it on masonite. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Probably would have been better if I had done that.
Or you can, it's okay. It looks really great. Or you can just go to even Michael's or here, the nearest art store, and they sell these packs of canvases, like 10 for $10. They're 14 by 17 size. They just sell packs, so you can just grab that and just paint on the canvas if you'd like, just stretched canvas rather than the yeah. But yeah, the canvas pads are great. Don't worry if you painted it. It's just gonna be this is, you know, exploration pretty much. So next time we're gonna paint some maybe buildings. I'm gonna look for some interesting references because we want to feel inspired. But yeah, feel free to ask me any questions. So as you can see, we started with big shapes again. First, underpainting. Step number 1 was the underpainting, very lightly, but not too light, so at least it's a medium value. Then we just map the dark areas. So dark, 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 dark. And then with the medium value, we go back, model, and use some details. And then at the very end, we introduce the light. So as you can see, we have some light here. And again, you can take the knife, take lots of paint, and see, I can just take that much paint. I don't know if you can see. Just grab 2 colors. You don't have to mix them completely or totally. They can be not quite mixed. And here you can just pop it right there, and it's gonna be super thick, but that's my light. So it can look a bit more abstract, more impressionistic, but that's how the light, this painting is gonna come to life. So hopefully you got a gist of it. If you didn't, feel free to ask me questions, but the more you do it, the better you're going to get. So what else do we have? So here, yeah, so at the very end now, the finishing touches are just get white and yellow and just put some highlights. So all these areas, see how I'm just taking my knife and just putting highlights here and there. Just a little bit of highlight, you know, some areas. Maybe there's a highlight there. Maybe there are a few dots here in these brushes. And just be as free as you can with your painting. And remember, you can build it and make a 1-inch thick painting. It's never, oh, not great enough or not good enough. It's fabulous as long as you're just constantly aware of your darks and lights. Not as much as the color, just you can use only 3 colors, but dark and light, number 1, very important. Okay, anyone else wants to show me their work? Here I'm gonna cool.
Anybody have questions? We've got about 2 more minutes.
Yay. Anything about any questions about materials, brushes? Make sure you wash your brushes very well with hot water, because when acrylic dries, oh, it's so hard, you can't even take it out. It's really difficult. So there is this misty area to create, you know, distance.
So just clean your brushes with hot water?
Just clean them with hot water. No need of soap, just hot water. Make sure there's no paint on them.
I had one question.
Yes.
I did my underpainting and then the painting over top of it just seems real light. It's not thick enough, I guess. It just seems like it's transparent. All you can see is the underpainting.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably not thick enough. So make sure you grab enough paint and start with the dark. And don't be afraid to mix a really dark color. So that's why I recommended the indigos, the violet. If you don't have any of these, take very dark blue, mix it with dark red. That's going to create a very dark color. And very quickly, just pop in your darks. Now you can do it now. Even obviously you probably have, some lighter medium value everywhere. So just squint your eyes, see where the darks are, and quickly with a bigger brush just pop them in, and then go back and do some more detail. Add some more detail. You're welcome.
I have a question. Since this was recorded, can we get a copy of it? So
Yes.
we can work that during the week?
Yes, I'm gonna edit it. Thank goodness it's still recording, so we are lucky. I will post it on YouTube, and I'll share my link with Jewel. And
Okay.
you guys can follow every single step that we did.
Yeah, my problem was that I'm used to watercolors and I kept dipping my brush into the water and it got way too wet. So it was really difficult to work with.
Yeah, it's
So I like to try it again.
yeah. Let's do that. Yeah, you can try it again. Avoid the water. The only reason I use the water is just to clean my brush so I can dip it into another color. And see, I'm just drying it basically. So I know with watercolor we make these puddles. Here, no puddles. We just have the paint. We grab the paint and put it directly, and we blend it. We either blend it or just put them next to each other. So.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're gonna have a lot of fun. Don't be discouraged. It's always when we feel a bit of like a challenge, that's when we're learning. So every challenge presents a learning opportunity, and the more we do it, the better we're gonna get.